Hi, I'm Trey, and this is Daily Bread. All right, today I wanted to talk about the differences between the traditional IRA and the Roth IRA. Now, the question that always comes up in reference to these two different types of plans is which one is better? The answer to that question is neither one is actually better than the other. It's just one may be better for you based on your situation, based on your current tax rate, and also based on what your tax rate will potentially be later on in life. Now, what is a traditional IRA? Traditional IRA is basically the original IRA type of package that they offered or plan that they offered when they first brought out IRAs. And basically, you place your money into the IRA and it's tax deferred. So if you're getting paid by your job or wherever, usually if you get it through a 401k, they take your money, however much, whatever the percentage is, and they place it into the IRA without taxing you initially. Okay. So the beauty of that is that money is able to compound, without being taxed initially up until your retirement. Okay. So once you reach your retirement and let's say you have to be past the age of 59 and a half, obviously, so that you won't receive any kind of penalty to make withdrawals. But once you do make a withdrawal, that's when they will tax you, and they will tax you based on the tax rate that you're at that moment. So if you started off at a lower tax rate, that won't matter. Whatever tax rate you end up at, once you get ready to retire, that's where you're going to be taxed. All right. So the difference between that and the Roth IRA is that the Roth IRA, they tax you up front. They tax you initially. Okay. So what makes that a good form of IRA is that they'll go ahead and tax you. So you'll end up with less money, obviously, to put into that IRA. Let's say with the regular IRA, you started with $1,000. Well, if they tax you with the Roth IRA initially, you may start off with, I'm just throwing a hypothetical number out there. They may tax you 20%. You end up with $800. So you, instead of having $1,000 to compound over the lifetime of your career, you only have $800 that'll continue to compound over the lifetime of the career. Now, the beauty of the Roth IRA is that once it's time for you to withdraw at 59 and a half, you won't have to pay any taxes on it. And it doesn't matter what tax bracket you're in, there won't be any taxes. So that's a really cool thing, depending on what tax bracket you're at that point, because you may be in a much higher tax bracket. So depending on the calculations and the numbers up to that point, it may make sense to go with the Roth IRA. Now, one simple way people sort out if they're going to go with a Roth or they're going to go with a traditional is for a new earner. Let's say someone, not necessarily a new earner, but someone who's in a lower tax bracket, and that would usually typically be a younger person, maybe someone who's in college or getting out of college and they're going to their first job and they're only making $40,000 a year. They're obviously going to be in a lower tax bracket than someone who's making $100,000 a year. In that situation, a lot of times it would make sense to go with the Roth. You go with the Roth, and you're in a lower. They go ahead and you're in a lower tax bracket at the moment, so they go ahead and tax you up front, that lower tax rate. So now as you're compounding, you get to 59 and a half, and you've built yourself up in the world, and now you're making $150,000 a year. You're in a higher tax bracket. You don't have to worry about that higher tax bracket as far as your IRA, your Roth IRA. So that's the beauty of a Roth IRA. Now, if you expect to be in the same tax bracket or lower once you get ready to retire, it may make sense to go with the traditional. Now, one of the interesting things about the Roth IRA is that any initial investment that you place into that Roth, you can actually withdraw that at any time with no penalty. And when I say initial, I mean like the money that you're actually placing in there, the investment money that you're placing into the Roth, you can always withdraw that with no penalty. Now, if you wish to withdraw earnings, obviously you would be penalized for that. Once you turn 59 and a half, you can take the money out. There won't be any taxes on that. Now, when I say 59 and a half with the Roth, the account has to have been active for at least 5 years before they'll allow you to take it out without any kind of penalty, or at least take the earnings out without a penalty. So that's something to think about. So if you go into the Roth 2 years before you get ready to retire, and then you want to start withdrawing, if you withdraw your earnings, then they will penalize 10% on those earnings. Okay? With the traditional IRA, once you place the money into that IRA, even the initial amounts, not just, once you place your initial amounts in there and you're constantly putting money in there, any money that you take out before 59 and a half, including the initial investments, will be penalized. They will penalize you 10% on the earnings and the initial investments. Once you turn 59 and a half, you don't have to worry about the penalty. But at that point, you will be taxed because it's a traditional IRA, so they will tax you at that point. So if you're in a higher tax bracket, you're going to get taxed at a higher tax bracket than you were when you first initially started the account. And those are the biggest differences between these two different types of accounts. So what you can do is kind of strategize as you're going through your career, as far as if you want to go into the Roth in the beginning and then at some point switch over to just a traditional, and that's something that you can strategize. Now, where some uncertainty comes into play is that you don't know what your future tax bracket is going to be. You don't know if you may start off in a really high tax bracket after getting out of college and then later on end up in a lower tax bracket. So depending on how that plays out, you want to try to strategize and choose the right account, but sometimes there is uncertainty. The other thing that you may not know, or obviously you won't know ahead of time, is if the laws have changed or will change by the time you get ready to retire, because the tax brackets could change. The thresholds could widen, or they could get smaller, or they could shift. Tax brackets change over the years. And I'm sure 20, 30 years from now, the tax brackets that we see now will probably be somewhat different. They may not be drastically different, but you never know. It just depends on the state of the world or state of the United States. So those are basically the key points to deciding on if you want to use a traditional IRA or a Roth IRA. And that's basically it. Thank you for sitting and listening to my thoughts on the IRA and the Roth IRA. Please like and subscribe, and God bless.